Excellent, so I'll kick things off. So welcome to all of our members to our AGM, this year titled Defending Persecuted Animals. My name is Chris Luffingham and I'm the Director of Policy, Communications and Campaigns. I've met some of you before, but this is my first AGM and I've got a cold, so go easy on me. Just some quick housekeeping before we start. Many of you, I think, will already have discovered, toilets are that way, and you go up the stairs. The gents will be straight ahead of you. The ladies, you need to kind of double back on yourself and go down some stairs over there. Fire exits are out and to the left, as I'm looking. We're not expecting any fire drills, so if there is an alarm, we need to get out of the way. The agenda for the day is going to be up on the screen, which you'll see. It's all fairly straightforward. We've split the AGM formal business so that you all have a chance to input in the afternoon breakout sessions. On that note, I'd like to talk to you about the breakout sessions themselves that we have lined up for you this afternoon. These are designed to be informal discussion groups. I'll give you a feel for the different areas that the League is currently working in. There'll be 3 sessions lasting 30 minutes each. The subjects up for discussion are as follows. There's a breakout session on the National Trust, the issues and how to stop what's going on there at the moment. There'll be a breakout session on dogfighting and how to recognise the signs and report the issues of dogfighting. There'll be a breakout session on growing our supporter networks, which is an opportunity to find out what you guys want from us and how we can support you and with your campaigns and your fundraising in your local areas. And lastly, there's an investigations consultations breakout session. And as you'll hear in Philippa's speech a bit later on, there's a consultation underway and we would like to hear your views. A note on the breakout sessions. You will have seen on your chairs a slip of paper and a pen. And before heading to lunch, can you make sure that you decide your top 3 preferences and hand them to Mike on your way out? Each session lasts about 30 minutes and then you rotate to your next choice. So you should be able to do 3 out of 4 sessions. Mike is over there and he'll take that and then work out how we can best configure it. If there is overwhelming desire to stick on one table as opposed to the other, we'll reconfigure things. But that may mean also that one of the subjects drops off depending on who wants to see what and who wants to talk about what. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. There'll be plenty of opportunity in these sessions for you to talk to staff and to share your views. And also, just to highlight for you, there'll also be a question and answer session at the end of the morning following Philippa's speech. So for now, you can please hold fire on questions and save it for that point. We'll have one microphone that's roving around the audience and one microphone which will be up on the top table. The AGM sessions that we plan today are a really important part of our year. Events like these help to shape the activity that we do and can improve how we go about doing things. With that in mind, I wondered if I might get your support and agreement on a couple of things just before we start. We've got a lot of substance packed in to the next few hours, and I'm sure that you all agree, given the importance of this time and that we are trying to make the most of you being here and the staff being able to hear what you've got to say, that we get to hear as many voices as possible. Could we all agree that we will try to keep the conversation flowing and that we'll give the best possible opportunity to hear as many people as possible so that we hear a lot of voices? Would that be okay? Is that a reasonable kind of rule to establish right at the beginning? Thank you very much. I'll be back at points through the day, but all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to hand over to our Chair of Trustees, Ian Blake-Lawson.
You come up.
Yeah, I'm going to come up. I was going to do this bit just from the table, but looking at Chris, it looked quite important here. Okay, good. First of all, thanks very much for coming along today. I know it's the women's final later on. I don't. Does anyone know what time that happens? 1 o'clock. I'm afraid you're going to miss it. So thank you very much. But I know what's more important, I'm sure, is as to whether Froome will keep the yellow jersey on the Tour de France. The highlights for that, incidentally, on ITV4 are at 7 o'clock, so you'll be fine for that. But actually, what is more important is that we're here to combat cruelty to animals, and specifically cruelty in relation to so-called sports. So you are in the right place right now. And thanks very much for coming along and showing your support for the League. So my part here, I'll be chairing the rest of the meeting, but my part here is dealing with the formal part of the business first, which includes a brief rundown of our activities this year, which is contained in our annual report as well. And then I'll be handing over to the most exciting part of the day, Andrew doing the accounts. So we're all looking forward to that. I just better introduce, firstly, the group. I'm trying to think of what to call you. The group there. So we've got at the far right, depending on how you're standing, we've got Mike Cook, who is one of our fundraising managers, and importantly for this evening, he's operating the slides. Thank you for that. I don't know who this other chap is next to him, but we're very pleased that he's here. I don't think he needs introducing either. Andrew Woods, who is our treasurer, and and Philippa as well. Right, first of all, just to say that the copies of the annual report, I think, are at the back, and full accounts, if you're really interested in looking through the detail, are available on request, and I'm sure Andrew will be happy to go through the detail with you during the breaks. Profit and loss, a balance sheet, etc., return on investments, and things like that. We're all very interested in that. Okay, so apologies for absence. Can I ask Philippa what apologies we've had?
Peter Anderson, Lorraine Platt, Charlie Moores, Alan Tapp, Chris Williamson, and Rachel Claremont.
And I think we've got notes from their parents, so that's okay. Okay. Right, so on to the business part of the meeting. So early in the year, we received footage of the 2 fox cubs being taken alive into kennels of a fox hunt. And then we saw the dead bodies being brought out from the kennels and dumped into a bin. I'm sure many of you saw that shocking and disgusting footage. The government were looking to bring back repeal of the Hunting Act, which was going to be announced at the Conservative Party conference, Tory conference. In preparation for that, we produced new polling figures showing how unpopular this move would be. And as a result of that, that announcement didn't take place. In Scotland, the Lord Bonomi review undertook a review into hunting. We had a petition of 15,000 for that, and as a result of this, the government is committed to consulting on strengthening the law. In terms of the polling, which is quite interesting, so we conducted a new poll in 2016. And actually, you can tell me. So, previously, in 2008, which was the poll we had previous to that, those people against hunting, that's hunting generally, was 72%. Now, do you think that's higher or lower? What do you think that is now? Correct. It is higher. It is actually 84%. So that's an increase from 72 to 84%. 4 years ago, 69%, lower or higher? Pardon? Higher, we say. 82%, that's from 69%. And interestingly, the Conservative voters, sorry, that was people in rural areas. Thank you. So that's really interesting. The Hunt have always said it's a town to countryside issue. This is not the case. 64% of Conservative voters in 3 years ago were against hunting. That's now gone up to 73%. 73% of Conservative voters are now against hunting. We can start to see now how unpopular any move would be by a government to change the hunting law. We now have 91% are opposed to changing the legislation on hunting, deer hunting. That was 88% and 91% for hare hunting. So I'll say that again. 91% now are opposed to legalising hare hunting and 88% opposed to legalising deer hunting. So the argument is going further our way. We always had a vast majority of the population against hunting, and you can see that's increasing since the Hunting Act as well. Let's move on to dogfighting. So dogfighting can take place in many different ways. Gang-related street-level battles involving very muscular dogs, and then we have secretive professional dogfighting. These are often linked to organised crime. So we're dealing with a bunch of extremely unpleasant people. We think that at street level, the dogfighting could be taking place every day in the UK. And the dogs are bred and trained for dogfighting using very cruel techniques to turn them into what would normally be obedient, well-behaved dogs to fighting machines. An underground trade in fighting dogs exists, and there's good evidence, of course, that other animals are used as bait for dog fighters. So what is the League doing? We're calling for a maximum penalty for dog fighting to increase to 5 years. Implementation of a national register for those banned from keeping dogs. Problem now is if people are banned from keeping dogs, how is that policed? How do we know that's the case? So this is why we need and want a national register. Dog fighting to be a recordable criminal offence. And in Northern Ireland, the penalty for animal cruelty is now already 5 years after a campaigning. And this is why we're pushing for that to go across the whole of the country. One other side effect, I would say, in terms of our work with dog fighting, this is now opening up a new audience that we can start talking about hunting as well. People that may, in the past, not have been interested in thinking about hunting. As a result of our work in dog fighting, this gives us an opportunity to give us an in, if you like, raising the issue of hunting with hounds. Some of you may well know the story of Cupcake. Cupcake, who was Staffy, who was covered in scars and showed every sign of being a victim of dog fighting. I'm pleased to say Cupcake is now in safe hands, but our investigations continue to find more dogs like her in that sort of condition. So going on to bird shooting. And it is bird shooting. This is a mass killing of millions of birds and also other animals. And it is on an industrial scale. People don't know this. Pheasants and partridges aren't native to the UK. They are factory farmed in conditions often worse than those of chickens. And huge numbers of these birds are just dumped after they've been shot. So it's purely shooting for fun and no other reasons. The way grouse are encouraged on moors, that causes a barrow ecosystem and environmental damage. Over 35 million pheasants and partridges are released into the UK countryside each year. Birds of prey, such as harriers and eagles, are shot and poisoned in order to protect these birds, which are going to be killed. Hundreds of thousands of animals caught every year in the UK in snares, and they're set around shooting estates. Snaring is directly related to shooting. And as we know, these are indiscriminate. Foxes, badgers, hares, otters, pet cats and dogs are all caught in snares. Progress. What are we doing? In 2016, we had a petition against grouse shooting, and that was supported by the League to the first ever, and that created the first ever debate on shooting in Parliament. That's a real major step of actually getting it talked about in Parliament for the first time. We're working on securing bans on snaring across the UK and highlighting the links between grouse shooting, land reform and climate change. Bullfighting. So we still have tourists from this country going to the Pamplona bull run. You know about this, don't you? A fun event of running with the bulls. And as we know, the cruelty that's involved in that particular event. And I guess perhaps some of those tourists don't understand and don't realise the cruelty that's involved. Quite a number of UK tour operators have actually stopped providing holidays. I wouldn't like to mention any particular names, but just in case you want to make a note, First Time Festival Travel, they still continue to promote this disgusting activity. And certainly it might be worth, if you're looking to book any holidays, to see whether those tour companies are involved in this disgusting activity. Trophy animals. The killing of trophy hunters continues around the world. We continue to raise attention about trophy hunting. And you may know the story of Cecil the Lion. Cecil the Lion. We celebrated the anniversary of the death of Cecil the Lion. Celebrated in inverted commas, of course. And that was with a tribute from our president, Bill. Apparently you've got a statue of Cecil in your home. Is this right? Yeah. Oh, sorry. It was secret. We're making sure Bill has special security. In terms of racing animals as well, we're now calling for a full phasing out of greyhound racing. We gave the industry, I'll call it an industry again, chance to improve their activities, but they haven't responded to that. So we are now calling for an outright ban to greyhound racing, so therefore hardening our line on this activity. So let's do some, thank you, let's do some summary by numbers. 84% of people in the UK are opposed to legalising fox hunting, as we heard. That's a record high. 1,203 signatures on a petition to ban driven grouse shooting. 200 mentions of our dogfighting investigation on TV and radio in one single day. And 149 MPs signing a parliamentary motion supporting our dogfighting campaign, which is the third highest out of over 1,000 motions. So I think that shows the impact that we're having actually across the board in all the campaigns that we're involved in. Bad news, 99% of Times monitored observed trail hunts, they did not see a trail being laid. Trail hunts are not laying trails. What do you think that means? 2 fox cubs dumped into the wheelie bin after being thrown to hounds at hunt kennels. So that gave us tremendous publicity. But what a cause to get that. This is what we want to end. We want to be in the position where we've got nothing to say, actually, to the country and to the media. 2 lead investigators were beaten up, as we know, by hunt monitoring. And 6 months is the maximum jail term for dogfighting and animal cruelty. 6 months. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're doing, what we've done over the last year. And thank you so much for your involvement and your support. We're a membership organisation and we're proud of that. So thanks very much for coming here and supporting the work over the last year, which is what this is about, but also for the coming year as well. So let me hand over now, for the best part of the day, to Andrew Woods as our Treasurer to give us a brief outline of where we are financially. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. He's saying the applause is for him.
It is.
Thank you, Clive. Can you hear me without the mic?
Yes.
No. People at the front say no, people at the back say yes. Okay. So this is the exciting bit as trail. It's not at all exciting, but it's very, very important because no money, no leak. The things that Ian's been talking about would not happen without your giving and the giving that we receive from others. So the first thing to say is thank you. Some technical stuff to begin with. Our auditors gave us a clean bill of health this year. Again, this year. That's good. That's good. That means that we're doing things properly. That keeps our noses clean with the Charity Commission and others. We turn over a bit more than £2.5 million a year in normal expenditure. We set a budget to make a deficit for the last year, and we did make a deficit, but a rather smaller one than we had planned on. We've actually been in deficit for several years now, and we've been slowly clawing that position back. So our financial health is getting better, and that's good. As you can see on the slide, I'm not looking at the slide, so I hope you can see on the slide, all of our money comes from giving of one sort or another. No magic grant from government. There isn't a magic money tree, to coin a phrase. And rather more than half of that comes from legacies. So legacies are hugely important to us, but so is the giving that everybody else gives us. And that ranges from big donations through responses to targeted campaigning, to regular giving, to somebody who can afford to give us a £5 a year. And every bit of that matters. So again, thank you, because you're some of the people who give. We aim to spend it wisely. So more than 80% of what we spend goes on protecting animals. That's what we're for. Whether that's through campaigning, through research that puts more facts into the public domain, through our investigations, of which more later, and all sorts of other activity. Lots of that going to pay staff, of course, but that's money that does something good for animals. We then put quite a big slug into fundraising, because without the fundraising there wouldn't be the funds I've just been describing. And a bit goes into the good governance of the League. That means we pay our auditors to come and do their job. We do the things we need to do to be compliant with health and safety legislation, all that sort of stuff. So that's a broad picture. As Ian said, the accounts are at the back. You can find them, you can read them, you can ask me difficult questions, which I will pass on to somebody who knows the answers. Finally, though, I want to go back to the subject of legacies. We would not survive without people who give to us in their wills. A lot of that we plan for. That sounds a bit ghoulish, doesn't it? But we reckon we get a certain level of income each year from legacies, and we plan activity around that. Occasionally we get something much more significant, and we don't count that in our normal expenditure. We use that differently. So we got a very big legacy from Stan Hales a couple of years ago now. We've invested some of that. We've used it to purchase property to strengthen our sanctuaries on Exmoor. We've used it for some of our campaigning. And that's prudent use of a large slug of money. But in the last year, a lot of people died, and in dying they wanted their support for animals to continue on into the future. And to our credit, they decided that we were the people to look after that money, and there are their names, and I'd invite you just to give them a few seconds thought, because without them, no Vinnie, no rescue dogs. Thank you.
So actually, I was a bit unfair to Andrew because it actually was really quite interesting, wasn't it? So you can see where we are. And I'll reiterate what Andrew said. How kind these people have been, and also how kind you have been in terms of raising money or putting your hands in your own pockets. Thank you very much for that. There's some business stuff for me to do again. So every year, a third of the members of trustees have to stand down, retire, and that means they can either go back home or re-stand. So we have two members that have re-stood for the committee, and no one was opposing them. So that was Peter Anderson and Alan Tapp, who have re-stood for that position. We've also have 3 co-optees join us during the year, and I'd like them just briefly to introduce themselves. So first of all, we have Sally Denby. Sally, hi there. Are you able just to say a few words?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, can everyone hear Sally, or does she need the mic?
Can you hear me like this?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. I'll just give a quick intro about myself. So, as Ian said, my name is Sally Denby. I've been working for over 20 years in the charity sector, which has been in fundraising and communications, which has predominantly been in the animal welfare, animal protection and conservation world. And in fact, quite a long time ago, way back in 2000, I actually worked for a while in the press office at the League, so I've been involved with them for a little while. I'm also quite heavily involved in animals on a voluntary basis. I'm also trustee of a small animal charity which works in Botswana in Africa. I do occasional dog fostering for a dog rescue charity, and possibly of more interest to some people here. For about the last 7 or 8 years, I've also been doing work in fox rescue and rehab. And in fact, at the moment, I'm currently looking after 6 rather gorgeous fox cubs in a pen in my garden, who will eventually be released back into the wild when they're ready. As well as foxes, I share my home with a number of other rescue animals, which is dogs, cats, chickens, goats. So I'm a massive animal lover. I'm passionate about animal protection. I'll be honoured to be a trustee for the League Against Cruel Sports, and I hope that I can bring some of my background and my experience to help the organisation.
Thank you very much, Sally. I think you got a louder round of applause than I did. So let's see what Sarah Miller can do. Sarah has also joined us this year as a co-optee.
Hi, well I'm not quite sure how to follow that, so I will try, but here we go. So my background is voluntary sector as well, and sorry, can everybody hear me okay as well? Yes. But mine's actually social care, so I come from a social care background. So you might be asking yourself, what can I bring? Well, I do have a passion for animals, very similarly to Sally. But I think what I would be bringing here is more of the governance side of things and also the voluntary sector. So my role at the moment, I'm a deputy CEO with a national disabilities charity. And within my remit, I oversee fundraising, marketing and communications, property, so some mundane things like property management, etc. But also operations and development. So hopefully, what I'll be able to bring to the board is much more of a sort of rounded sort of governance and operational development aspect. But on a personal note, I'm just completing my MBA, so looking forward to finishing that very, very soon. I'm a vegan, and similarly to Sally, and probably most of us here, I have a host of kind of rescue animals and care passionately about animals. So that's me.
Thank you. You can allow your applause for Sarah. We also have co-opted Rachel McLennan. Unfortunately, she can't be here. She sent her apologies. She's really not very well at the moment. She's quite literally distraught at not being here today. Rachel, very, very briefly, we brought her in for expertise on the marketing side and also social media for that expertise on the trustees. We have very good expertise within the League from our staff members. We thought it would be good to have some further expertise on the Board of Trustees. Now, in terms of the Constitution, the co-optees require your agreement to their position, so they become full members of the Board of Trustees. I'd like, if possible, if you're agreeable, to move on block for all 3. Let's try that first. If we have a proposer. Thank you very much. We have a proposer and a seconder. Oh, who was first? No, that's my wife, so I think we'll have this lady here. Thank you very much. I'm going to be really hit when I get home tonight. Okay. So that concludes the business. Thank you very much to Sally and Sarah. Sally and Sarah, that's quite a ring to it, actually. Just one fine... Yes, sorry.
You have a proposer and a seconder for each of the new members.
You'd prefer separate ones, would you?
I think that's what you have to do.
Okay, in that case, I said we'll give it a go, but we won't be able to. So in that case, we'll do it singularly, as we have a request from the floor, and I'm happy to accept that request. So, can I first start with Sally? Then, do we have a proposer for Sally? We have a proposer for Sally, and the lady just behind as well. If we make a note of that, because we'll need to record the names. Those in favour of Sally? Okay. Any against? I won't ask for abstentions, so congratulations. And to Sarah, do we have a proposer for Sarah? Yes, lady over there, thank you very much. I'm starting to feel like an auctioneer now, actually. And do we have a second of the lady down here? Again, thank you very much. Those in favour of Sarah's acceptance as a board member of trustees? Okay, thank you very much. And any against? Okay, thank you very much. And then Rachel, who, as I say, has given her apologies. Can we have a second proposer, for Rachel? Rachel McClellan? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. A proposer and a seconder. Thank you very much. She really does bring some new fresh blood and thinking to the trustees. And actually I should say that as well. We wanted to bring in new people with new faces, new ideas, and as they shake us up a bit as well. That's not quite what I mean, but you understand there. We have a proposer and a seconder.
Can I just raise another point of order?
Mhm,
Sorry,
mhm.
just so it is legitimate. I believe that at AGMs people have to present in person to be elected.
That's not actually in our constitution. No, it may well be in a lot of organisations, but that's not a requirement actually in our constitution. Okay. Those in favour? Okay. And any against? Don't have any against. Okay. Thank you very much. If we can collect those names, whoever it is at the end, of the proposers and the seconders, because that will need to be minuted. Okay, thank you for your support on that matter. Finally, I will just mention the sanctuaries.
Excuse me, Ian.
Yeah.
The re-election of the two that said need re-election.
Oh, sorry, yes, thank you, thank you.
Are they here today?
Yeah, sorry?
Are the two people there, Alan and Peter, here today?
No, unfortunately, they're both not here, and they have sent their apologies as well. Peter,
Can I just ask how many of the trustees are actually here today?
can we show signs for hands up from the current trustees who are available at the moment? Sorry, just the existing trustees, you two are now.
How many are not here?
Pardon?
How many are not here?
We have 11 now, so we have 6 who aren't here.
It's not good, is it? This is the AGM. It isn't good. There's no CEO and 6 out of 11 aren't here.
I would say, just as far as the CEO is concerned, I know probably Philippa will say a few more words with that.
I've just been
in terms of
informed it's supposed to be 2/3 of the trustees for a quorum.
Not on the AGM. It is in terms of there is a quorum required for actually trustee meetings, which off the top of my head I think is 3 actually, but not actually at the AGM.
I feel it's very disappointing because of everything that's kicking off that they're not here. We've all got a back holiday.
I understand, and your comments will be noted as well in the minutes. Okay, unless there are any further questions on that point at the moment, we'll go on to our sanctuaries, which I think are important to mention. As you know, the League owns a number of sanctuaries. Currently, we have 500 sanctuaries, but we also hold a number of sporting rights for 2,000 acres. That's hunting and shooting rights around Exmoor and the Quantock Hills. These are some of the few places where you're almost guaranteed to see Britain's largest land mammal, the wild red deer. So that shows how important our sanctuaries are to us. We're proud of our conservation work, which is providing a thriving ecosystem on our sanctuaries. And I should say that I think the meaning of the word conservation means different things to different people. Sometimes conservation is used as a way of justifying culling, killing, or hunting of animals, actually. That doesn't happen with us. We do not ascribe to that form of conservation. We're about the conservation of all species. Just to say, actually, all members can visit our sanctuaries and see for themselves what the League does and how wonderful our sanctuaries are. I'll leave there, and I'd like to move on to actually probably what is, other than the conversations we're having this afternoon with you as members on various issues, I'd like to turn actually, truly, to the most interesting part of today. Yes, Lady Evelyn.
Just ask if Big Red is still alive on the sanctuary?
Big Red.
Big Red.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and he's still
Yeah.
he's still thriving. Thank
Yes,
you.
he is.
Thank you. Would you like to indicate who you are?
Andy Kendall, Investigations Officer.
Thank you
For
very
the last 3 years I've been protecting the sanctuaries down in Devon and Somerset. And last year Red nearly got caught by 8 hounds, but we managed to come back to the sanctuary, yeah. So he's still alive.
And is he thriving?
Yes, he is.
Actually, let's give a round of applause to Big Red. And he has been an incredible star for us. And this is what catches people's imagination, when we are able to identify and perhaps even give a name to a particular animal. People can really understand what's going on, and it does bring it home when people can identify a particular star animal. But that's not to say that every animal, certainly on our sanctuaries, is important, and I would say across the country, and even at the moment across Europe, but that won't be the case, I suppose, in a few years' time. Okay, so I'd like to move on now to our president, which we are very pleased to have as our president, and very honoured indeed. I'm pleased that Bill decided not to retire to India. Not to retire to India. It was a really good TV series, actually. So thank you very much. Yes?
Have we got to any other business?
No. That comes later on. I should say questions are at the end, after we've had the consultation meetings as well. Okay, let me pass.
Item 5 is any other business. Item 4 is appointment of trustees. That's why I got lost, because I thought 5 was any other business.
Right.
And then the informal question and answer.
It's a good job someone here knows what they're doing, isn't it? We can take questions at this point. There will be a fuller question and answer session, which is what I was thinking of just there, which will also follow up from the conversations we have with you on various issues, including the investigators, which may be of interest to just a few people. I don't know why I'd know that, but it's an important issue that we do want to discuss with you as part of our consultation process. But I'll open it out for any other business. I'll remind you that there is an opportunity to ask questions later on as well. Do we have any formal business that relates to last year?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I attended last year, but I was too late to raise the question about the League's formal complaints process, which is fairly apposite, I think, at the moment. I was surprised that John Cooper had been sacked as the president after you and me go back a long way, anyway. John was the chairman for a very long time. And it seems that the circumstances surrounding that was to do with him taking up some complaints. And I just wondered how that could go so wrong with so much bad publicity that we really don't need. and whether in fact you should now, and I've just read this document about the investigators, whether you need to review the complaints process in the league, you know, to look at concerns as well as formal complaints, because clearly that was mishandled, and John Cooper is adversarial by nature, so you know, I wouldn't like to gossip particularly. But I do feel that, you know, where's the loyalty in many respects, because he was chairman for so long, and he, being the president, is an honorarium anyway, and it did play out very badly. And that's something I've always said, that we have to be united, because the opposition got so much money and so much desire to smash this organisation. We've had many years of strife. You know, I remember real punch-ups in the league with huge, huge membership used to turn up at the AGMs. And, you know, it became a bit stage managed. So I do think this is an opportunity for the members to put this to the executive. Will you review the complaints procedure of the league in light of people who may be losing their jobs, which we'll probably come around to discussing later? But there should be formal processes. And I'm a chair of a charity myself, so it's a small charity, but you've got the Charity Commission over you as well. People can make complaints to the Charity Commission, they can make malicious complaints. Volunteers who are giving of their free time are open to complaints from members of the public, let alone attack. And I just feel this needs to be tightened up. And when bodies get a bit removed from the membership, I think that's a problem. I've been currently looking at the National Health formal complaints process and the local council's formal complaints process. And we're living in a culture where anyone can just make a complaint and it's accepted as though the person is guilty. I mean, that is the J'accuse type of society we're now living in. So I'm quite interested in this, and I think probably the membership here would support looking at how complaints, formal complaints, especially high-profile people, including estimable President Bill, you know, I don't think we should give any evidence that the Countryside Alliance can chew over. You know, we've got to be a tight unit, and that's why I'm making this point.
Can you explain the initial problem?
Can I explain the initial problem? I'm not sure I can, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure I entirely know, really. It was so complicated and confusing. We had a past chair of the League Against Cruel Sports. I have to be careful what I say here, because there are some personal issues involved with himself and others. So I do have to be careful that we abide by certain agreements that we made to him. A number of complaints were made. We investigated that, and actually what I'll do, I'll hand over to Philippa. She's looking a bit startled and surprised, just to explain the internal process that we currently have. He made a number of complaints through the Times initially, so very publicly. We held an independent investigation internally and found those allegations, which were varied and various. We were trying to unpick the various accusations that he was making. He chose to deal with that publicly. We had an independent review internally. That also went to, as you say, the Charity Commission. They reviewed our working, as indeed they should do. We welcome them into our organisation, and we have a clean bill of health. I think probably it's fair to say they're extremely satisfied with how we're running and how we operate. They actually came in. When was it, Philippa, roughly? When did they visit us initially? March last year. Yeah. So myself and some other trustees came along, obviously as part of the interviews, and I came in, and the financial reports and information literally was stacked up. And you should have seen their faces because they had to go through all of that information. They went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they said it was a really difficult job because of the amount, the accuracy and the detail of the information that we keep. I'll pass over to Philippa just to talk a little bit more about our internal complaints procedure. I should also say that we are looking at reviewing our articles of association, and that's because some of the points you've raised actually, they're quite arcane, dated and confusing and complicated because of the way the League has built up over these years. So we are looking at that, and again there will be a consultation process from our members as part of that as well. If I can just pass over to Philippa just to mention the internal process.
Thank you, Ian. As a result of what happened with John, actually, we, the Board of Trustees, got an external HR advisor. So we've actually put in lots of new staff handbooks, policies and procedures. So that's been implemented, and we're rolling out some of those through that. So things like flexible work agreements, looking at, and we've also had to go through contracts as well. So that we also have an independent whistleblowing service. The result of some of the issues that happened before were that people didn't trust the whistleblowing service that we had, so we've instituted a new one. We've also got something called LEAP, which is the League's Employee Assistance Programme. So if people are really having trouble, it's confidential and they can access, support in that area. So that's on the internal side. On the external side, we've also been doing a big review in terms of our complaints processes and procedures from, you guys or other people out there. Lucy Groom is here, standing at the back, and just does an amazing job with our supporters. We've looked at sort of tightening things up, by making sure that we get things that responded to in 3 days where possible. And again, it's been really good, actually, the open and transparent process for that, particularly in light of all of the fundraising regulations that are changing. So in the sector, we've got the Fundraising Standards Board, and lots of things are coming down the line that we're going to have to make sure that we are in line with all their guidance. So for instance, making sure that everyone opts into communications, that we speak to you in the way that you want to be spoken to and respond to. And again, I know that the Charity Commission are consulting on campaigning organisations, so we're looking out at what that means for us too. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippa. I hope that reassured you to some extent.
Yes,
Thank you. As I say, we are looking at our articles of association because we realise how complicated and arcane they are. And I would say we've built up a very good relationship with the Charities Commission, and they've been very helpful in terms of best practice as well. So actually it's been very beneficial in the end as a result of that. We have a very close working relationship with the Charity Commission, and as Philippa is saying, which is particularly important to us with the change of law, particularly in the area of fundraising as well. Thank you very much for raising the question. Thank you. Unless there are other questions at this stage, yes, there are. Can I take the lady over there?
Yeah. It's about dog fighting, if I may ask that.
Yes, yeah.
Can I have the mic?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've got
Sorry, go another way.
Thank you. I've been in touch with the RSPCA regarding their dog fighting campaigns and what they do about it. And apparently, and I spoke to Chris about this before at the Leeds event, they've got 16 to 20 full-time investigators, and they spend the most money on dog fighting. more than we do, I presume. They are deep undercover, and it takes months to get them in that position. And you've got to have the right people to go in, people who will look the part, with tattoos, who are bald, who are big. You get the typical types. And they can find a lot of information, and they take Dogs Like Cupcake and the others that the League have bought from these dog fighters monthly. I think the League have enough to deal with all the other issues, and taking on yet another one. It's an already illegal law that you can't use dogs for dog fighting. Hunting, for instance, it's an ongoing thing. They're not sticking to the law, and there's a long way to go on that. But I think we should leave it to the experts, and the experts on pet dogs, if you can call them that, which have been mistreated to fight, should be left to the experts, and that's the RSPCA, and that comes from the top. Thank you.
So, sorry, thank you. Just for clarification, you say from the top
Of the investigators, of the RSPCA.
of the RSPCA investigators.
That's a new of the RSPCA though, isn't it? I can see.
Is there anyone who, in terms of the campaign side, or that can answer the question in terms of? I guess we have to be careful because we don't want to be seen to denigrate the RSPCA in any way. But as to whether the question there was, should we be leaving it to the RSPCA?
Who have we got to deal with it?
And the resourcing of that, if we do, is that a reasonable summary of your question?
As long as you're not taking people away from one issue to work on another.
Hi there. Sorry, what's your name?
Marjorie Edwards.
Hi, Marjorie. That's a really good question, and I know that I think there's a perception that we're kind of veering away from where we've come from since 1924 and focusing on hunting. As Ian said in the review of last year, actually what we're finding with dogfighting is that A, it is a really, really, really cruel sport, but B, it's also strategically, it's opening doors in the corridors of power for us to advance all our goals. With regards to what the RSPCA do, we are actually working in a different area to what they're doing. I can't say what, because obviously we have to keep the safety of people, but what I can say is that we are gathering and have got over 600 pieces of evidence, connections that it's worldwide, that it's happening in towns and also in the rural areas in the UK. We also know the demographics of where it's happening, so it's within British Asian, it's across the board, white British travellers, and actually it is quite prolific in the UK. It is quite dangerous for our investigators, so obviously I can't tell you the detail of that. Does that answer your question, Marjorie?
Investigators, have you actually working on dogfighting?
We only use contractors, so it depends. It might be one person, or depending on what the operation is, it could be more. But we do that separately.
If I may add, I'm the programme manager on the
Hello. I'm the programme manager on the dogfighting work. People that work on hunting are not the same as the people we use in investigating for dogfighting. As you've already very ably set out, they're different. You need different skills. They're different people. Yes, they do look very different, as you very ably described. So there is no taking of resource from hunting into the dogfighting area. That's just what I wanted to add.
There's quite a few questions here. I'll take some different questions this time. A lady here.
I just strongly wanted to put the opposite view that what is the league about if it's not, it cannot ignore any club sport, else why are we here? So I want my to go against the fight against fox hunting, any hunting equally. to dog fighting. Sorry, I've got a cold. Bear with me.
Thank you. The lady in the red t-shirt.
I've been a supporter for a long time, basically, but I've
Can't hear you.
Okay, so recently I've noticed a trend in the last few years of moving away from the protection of foxes. As we all know, the Hunting Act may as well not really exist particularly, and prosecutions are important. The thing that I'd like to ask you, Ian, in particular is, I may have missed it, but in your speech I didn't notice, you laid out objectives for your other campaigns, but you haven't actually laid out any objectives for fighting hunting, and I just wondered whether I've missed that or whether you could let me know what's happening on that front, so that's equally important.
Bottom line now is we are looking, or we're working hard towards tightening up that act. Robbie, it might be useful just to give us an update on the Scottish side with regards to that and the recent report. It's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Robbie Marsland. I'm the director of the League Against Cruel Sport Scotland. Greetings from Scotland. Well, I gave a short report to the AGM last year about the developments in Scotland. Scotland, as I've mentioned to a few other people today, is a very different place in terms of progressive policies on animal welfare. It was the first place that hunting was banned in the UK. For different ways and for different reasons, hunting has continued for the last 15 years in Scotland. Mainly because the hunts were able to just do it under the radar. There isn't a campaign for a repeal of the hunting ban in Scotland because they just go out hunting and they knew that it was easier for them to do that than draw attention to themselves. But 3 years ago, the League invested heavily into Scotland. I was appointed and we started to have a proper budget, and for the first time we were able to do a research project into what the hunts in Scotland were really doing. And what we uncovered was that they were really hunting. They were just going out 3 times a week between mid-September and the end of March, just doing ordinary hunting. It was really sickening to see when we got the video evidence. That video evidence went to the Scottish Parliament. The whole animal welfare area is devolved to the Scottish Parliament. They were appalled at what they saw and commissioned an independent law lord called Lord Bonamy to do a review of the legislation in Scotland. That agreed that they were using parts of the law as a decoy for traditional hunting. And we are now waiting for a consultation period to end, which will lead to a tightening up in the law. And last year I said I was cautiously optimistic. I'm now just optimistic that that will happen, particularly because of the League's work. We recently, in the last 2 weeks, had the first successful prosecution of a mounted hunt in Scotland. So after 15 years and a 9-day trial, the sheriff, as we have sheriffs in Scotland, not magistrates, pronounced to the hunter, the huntsman and the master of the Jed Forest hunt guilty of illegal hunting. So be assured that hunting is right up there. It's the biggest thing that we're working on in Scotland, and what we know is that if Scotland can lead the way again, then that will make our work in England and Wales, which some of you will know I've been involved with over the last 15 years or so, that much easier to say that it's not a question of defending the hunting ban against repeal, it's about getting on the front foot and saying trail hunting is a mockery, and like the Scottish legislation, the legislation in England and Wales needs strengthening, and that's certainly my perspective of the League's strategy on hunting. And just to go back to something that Philip has said, part of that, I'm afraid, is winning hearts and minds amongst the Tories. That is a reality in England and Wales. And if dogfighting campaign opens doors into those Tories and they start talking to the League in the way they haven't in the past, then I think that's a very good thing. But the end result is a strengthened fox hunting ban in England and Wales, and that repugnant activity ends.
Is Nicola Sturgeon a good supporter?
I was saying to someone earlier that I've worked for animal welfare organisations for the last 15, 18 years, and I've never known a political leader come to the stand of either the International Fund for Animal Welfare or the League. And this year, Nicola Sturgeon stood with me at the League against Cruel Sport stand and said, "You're doing a really good job, all strength to your own." So yeah.
Thank you, Robbie. Actually, I would also add to that as well, and don't mistake this, we have been so close to losing the Hunting Act completely. We have been so close to repeal. As we know, just recently this year, it was in the Conservative Manifesto. My belief, and it is only my belief, is they would have slipped it in really quickly to get it out of the way. We ran, I think, a fantastic campaign. You may know about Vote Vinnie. And certainly I think the evidence that we've been given is that this was the second most talked about subject in the election. Chris can add on to that. But it had a fantastic input. Our polling had a fantastic input and influence. And I believe now hunting is toxic. The repeal of the Hunting Act is toxic as a result of our work. So actually, over last year and this year up until now, our focus and our resources, rightly, have been on maintaining and keeping that Hunting Act. We have the Hunting Act, which allows us to build on and improve. We nearly lost that act. So I can guarantee that we have been working extremely hard to protect the act, and we will continue now to improve and strengthen that act. Yeah.
I'll just make an observation about the mindset in countryside and arts. You've got devolution, that gentleman just spoke about what's going on in Scotland, you've got Wales. What about English laws for English voters? Evil. Because I think that's the way they're going to campaign in England to bring back culture. By saying, not allowing the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish to have a vote on.
Actually, I'll allow Robbie to come. I'll give a quick warning. Robbie, just to mention the English votes for English law, because of course the Scottish nationalists saved us somewhat by deciding, no, this is a moral matter, and therefore it's right that there is a vote that MPs across the country have a say in that. So actually we're very pleased, I think it's fair to say, Robbie, that we had the support of the Scottish nationalists. Had we have not, that would have been another opportunity. We were very close, actually. We were very concerned at that stage that we might lose the Act. Robbie, can you add anything further on the Scottish aspect of English votes for English law?
Well, right now, the proposals that were on the table for evil, for English votes for English laws, still left of the third vote, or the final stage of that, to be all MPs involved. So it's not an immediate danger, and it would need some legislative change to bring that about, and I think I'll leave it to you to think about whether or not there's going to be much time to talk about anything other than Brexit for the next 2 or 3 years. And also with the majority as it stands at the moment, personally, I think it's very unlikely that they're going to address that concern amongst the Tory body. And Ian, I believe that if the SNP hadn't agreed to vote on the issue, there still would have been a majority against repeal. Because we now, I mean, I'm hearing figures like 90 Tories saying that they would stand against, but they wouldn't support repeal of it. Which is why, again, my feeling is that we need to go on the front foot and talk about strengthening the law, not pivoting away from this world where we see it as being always under attack. I think we have to be prepared for it to be under attack, because we know that there is a vociferous group of people who want to repeal it. But like I said, I think the opportunity is there to get on the front foot, which I, for one, I think is a good place to be.
I think, just to add to that, two things there. Of course, the mathematics in Parliament has changed a lot since the last election, certainly in our favour. We've shown that the population, including the countryside population now, are against hunting. But also, we want to move the argument on now. We want to move it on to strengthening, as opposed to just holding on to the Act as it currently is.
Well, can I just quickly interject? With respect, that's a fantastic objective. It's brilliant. It definitely needs strengthening. But hunting's going on every 3 times a week, 5 times a week. It's just carrying on as normal in England. What will you be doing to educate people about this, and also prosecutions, because it's going to be a while before the Hunting Act is strengthened, if it ever is. You're up against the establishment, as I'm sure you know. Prosecutions are really, really important. You need to keep, the League and the anti-hunting world in general is on a really strong footing at the moment, and that's something that you need to take advantage of. Get them prosecuted, get them investigated, get them prosecuted while we're waiting to strengthen the Act.
Yes.
Yes, is the answer. I fully agree, completely agree. I can take one more question, I think. Have you spoken before? No, you had your hand up before anyone else then. So.
Thank you. I just wondered why we continuously focus on fox hunting rather than hunting generally, because there is still a proportion of the population that don't like foxes, so won't mind too much, although I know the results are good of polls. But you know, if it's hunting as a whole, like the deer and the hare coursing, etc., I just wonder why we specifically always seem to focus on fox hunting.
Thank you. I think that's a very good question, actually, and I'll hand that over in a moment, but just to give Philippa a chance to get her facts and thoughts together. It is a bit of a call, I have to say. Foxes are understandable in the public's mind. I think that's really why when we talk about hunting, saying fox hunting, people understand. And I think it also seems to be very difficult to get the media perhaps quite so interested in talking about the others. But I think we certainly are look to raise awareness on the other types of hunting as well. And certainly actually the polls suggest that, for instance, they're more against hare hunting than perhaps fox hunting. Let me pass over to Philippa.
This is part of my speech coming up next, but in response to both of your questions, so some of our plans that are coming up shortly are to do a call to get more intelligence on cub hunting, because what we're trying to do is make hunting even more toxic than it is. And actually I don't think the general public do know that cubs are taken, they're reared in barns, they're put in artificial earth, they're thrown to hounds. So we really want to get more intelligence, more evidence, and really get that out there and expose that, the kind of like, well, it's also cruel practice, but the premeditation of how people go about hunting as well. Alongside that, we're just coming up, October time, September, October, we've got a major campaign coming up with the National Trust. A big part of that is on the stag hunting. So Andy, our investigator from the Southwest who spoke earlier, and Graham, they've got amazing footage, well, disgusting footage, really strong footage of stag hunting. So that's coming up in the next couple of months. Again, what we're trying to do is that we think that in the public's minds, the actual killing of hounds will be, again, something that helps make people think, my gosh, this is really disgusting practice. Because again, as you say, you know, some people just don't connect emotionally with a fox being ripped apart. Goodness knows why, but, you know, so we're trying to look at other areas that can really sort of like get that heart and really outrage people. And yes, we are in the best position. You know, it looks as though repeal's been kicked into the long grass for another 2 years, and we need to capitalise on that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing more later. Thank you.
So there will be more opportunity for your input, more detailed input actually this afternoon with the discussion groups. And there is, I think, still a question and answer session towards the end, following from that as a wrap-up as well. Let me pass over to Bill, our president, who we are very lucky to have such a committed, well-known face for the League. Bill, thank you.
There's quite a few people who'd like me to be committed, actually. But, yes, takes a while. When you get to this point, after so much being said and hearing so much, I have to confess, I get more and more nervous about it in a sense, because I'm thinking, there's nothing left to say. If there is something left to say, tell me about it later, because I won't be here this afternoon. Anyway, I'm going to start with a couple of thanks. Usually we end with thanks, but we'll start with thanks in this case. First of all, thank you for, I don't know whether you vote or just put your hands up, or a couple of people write in and said how about getting Bill to do it. But thank you for making me the president. I'm very, very proud of that, although I assure you I will be making some effort to make the world image of presidents slightly more dignified. Talking about America, yeah. The other person I'd like to thank a great deal isn't sadly with us today, and that's Eduardo, who is not well. Some of you may know that, but he's had some pretty nasty things going on, and they're examining him very thoroughly to once and for all stop this nonsense, because it's been a pleasure to work with him during the year, and I think anybody who will have seen him in action would agree. He's absolutely a paragon of clarity and enthusiasm and excellent presentation. He's a very eloquent man as well. So we want Eduardo back as soon as possible, please. And I'm thanking him for the work that he's done so far, and I'm sure the work he will be doing in the future. The other person I want to thank, and I never thought I'd be saying this, I want to give a big, big thanks to Theresa May. No, seriously. I specifically thank her for being so stupid. She seriously thought that bringing the fox hunting ban and repealing it would actually win votes. And that goes for quite a large number of her advisors and other ministers who presumably also thought that. How dumb are they? Well, I think, to my mind, what's happened, and this very peculiar year that we've had, and this year as well, of course, basically, I think what's happened is, with any luck, once and for all, a very large proportion of the public, they don't necessarily have to be animal welfare people or anything else, but I think it is sinking in that by and large politicians are not to be trusted. They're largely self-interested, an awful lot of them are in it for themselves, an awful lot of them own wealthy property, which does affect us because they're exactly the sort of places where the hunts go and so on and so forth, and in some cases still do. And I honestly think, other than the middle of last year, that the the image of politicians was pretty damn low. And it depressed me terribly, and I'm sure it depressed a lot of people who think, I can't believe that these people are in charge, and you can't believe that you don't see through them, and the self-interest and the arrogance that goes on. But I think most people do now, and I think with any luck, that might change some politicians' way, although there's at least one or two who will never change. Is Boris here? No. What I decided to do actually is just a little nostalgia actually, because everything's been said here and more will be said about hunting, etc., 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 and what the League do. I can't add anything to do with that, but my own little journey actually getting more involved over the past few years. One of the things I have, going back to politicians actually, I have been entertained, I think, by some of the daft things that they say. And some of those daft things are often aimed at people like your good selves here. I think particularly during the height of the Badger Cull, and this could easily happen again because we don't know really. I know Gove is supposedly in charge now, but I can't believe he'll last long because I don't think it'll be interesting enough for him, and he won't have enough opportunity to say silly things. But somebody else will be back to do it. And of course they did have a fantastic mentor, as it were, of daft things that could be said to people who were interested in looking after badgers. And I just, I keep a little notes of these things as the year goes on. Let me see, what were some of the best ones? Oh yes, I don't think anybody, that's right, I think it was actually Cameron who actually, and this is you, you are all a green blob of unrelated busybodies. Takes one to know one. Yeah. And this was an even better one for an MP down in Gloucestershire area, where I went down to join some of the badger, whatever you call them, watchers, and the local minister said, they're a bunch of layabouts and spongers who lie in bed all morning till it's time to collect their benefit checks. Do you? Maybe you do. But of course, the winner by a mile was the master of stupid comments, was Owen Paterson. We'll never see the like of him again, I hope, anyway. He'll be back though, he will be back, he's already back to a point, isn't he? But that fantastic remark, if I had to give a remark of the last couple of years, the prize would have to go to Owen Paterson, when an interviewer said to him, Mr. Paterson, it seems, listening to you talk about all this, that you and the government have rather moved the goalposts. At which Paterson said, no. It's the badgers that have moved the goalposts. Of course, I was happy to see that members of the League mentioned and badger watchers and so on and so forth were out there marching within seconds with carrying goalposts and moments like that we live for. There's a slight tendency, I know I've done it myself, to sort of divide the battle up and say it's an us and them type battle, and it's very, very often seen as, oh, it's town and country, oh, it's farmers and conservationists and so on and so forth. I don't want to see it like that. I don't like seeing it like that because I don't think it's as simple as that by any means. On each side there's lots of fantastic animal-orientated tourists, for example, all the Blue Fox people and so on and so forth. There are lots of good people on both sides. What I think it is actually, and this is my favourite, what I've learnt over the past few years, I think, it's much more to do with morality, humanity, possibly even humour to a certain extent, but we're divided, or the world seems to be divided, into people who are involved with animals in a good way, so it brings out the best in them. And people whose involvement with animals and birds and so on and so forth brings out the worst in them. And there are so many atrocities going on all over the world, not just in Britain, of course. And they can be anybody. They can be anybody. It isn't a matter of saying it's them against us, town against country, Conservatives against Labour, or anything like that. It's the people who care and the people who don't give a damn, basically. In fact, worse than that, they actually get pleasure from what they're doing. So, I don't really have anything more to say, and I'm sure lots of other people do. So, I'll be handing back this microphone, and thank you for asking me along today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. As Bill said, we sorely miss Eduardo. He's been on the Eduardo, our chief executive. Yeah, he's in hospital. He's I don't want to give all these medical details out, but he's seriously unwell at the moment. Having said that, he's been in contact with me, well, at least every other day, I think, if not every day. I think yourself as well. I'm afraid I've had to tell him to shut up, because he really has to look after himself at the moment as well. So he really does send his apologies, and he's undergoing a number of tests at the moment, so he wasn't able to be here, I'm afraid. He will, I know, be ringing me or certainly contacting me to ask how it's gone today. Can I ask yourselves, our membership, to give our best wishes to Eduardo and hope that he has a speedy recovery and he's back with us fighting for animals and against cruelty. He can return as soon as possible, and we wish him well. Thank you. So at this point, I will pass over to Philippa to pick up where Eduardo would have been. Thank you very much.
Hello again. Before I was going to launch into my speech, I just wanted to take a moment for you all to thank you all for being here. Eduardo is actually really devastated that he can't be here, and he would have done anything to be here if he possibly could. I know that he really looks forward to these events and meeting with you and hearing your passion and your support for us, which is amazing, and talk to our members. I've been here for a couple of years, and likewise, the people that I know and met, it's just been a really rich and amazing conversation. Thank you again for your support. Over the 2 years that I've been at the League, I've had the... I don't intend to go back over what we've said earlier this morning and what we've achieved in the past year. But I do want to say that I think we have every right to feel proud of the successes and to take pride in the work behind the headlines which have made these successes possible, such as the work that went into delivering our record growth in membership, the work that delivered unprecedented coverage in the national media, including TV and radio. And actually, the reason that Theresa May was asked that question by a journalist was because our press office was speaking to him the day before and asked him to do that. So that was really amazing. The work that delivered mass levels of engagement with members of the public via social media and online platforms. We have one of the biggest reaches after Friends of the Earth on our social media platforms. The work that went into getting new sporting rights being offered to us so that we can ensure no hunting takes place in even more parts of the countryside. The work that went into our record growth in supporters in Parliament. The work that went into recruiting some new, really high-profile celebrity supporters that are really helping our cause, and of course the election and all the work that went into that. Because let's face it, the scenario we were facing before, when the election was called, was pretty grim. The polls suggested there would be a clear majority of pro-hunting MPs in Parliament, and for the first time since the passage of passing the Hunting Act. However, there was one little problem with all this, one small issue they'd overlooked, and actually they forgot about us, they forgot about the League. They forgot about our supporters, our ability to mobilise and reach out to the public, to politicians, and our track record in stopping the Hunt lobby in their tracks. You would have thought that they would have learned when David Cameron's failed attempt to bring the anti-amendment, the amendment to the bill back in 2015. So fresh in their memory, but still the arrogance, and they continued with that. And they didn't learn, so again, thank you for all your help and support, and everyone else out there who's supporting the League that responded. I mean, it was a huge achievement, and they responded massively. We know that election candidates found themselves veritably bombarded by voters through our online campaign. There were a staggering 70,000 voter candidate lobbying actions. Candidates of all parties were reporting they were getting more questions from voters on the hunting ban than on any other issues, which is amazing and extraordinary. According to BuzzFeed, on social media, hunting was talked about more than Brexit. While posters asked voters what they remembered about the Conservative manifesto, more said hunting than their policies on NHS or taxes. YouGov said the words most brought up during the campaign were social care and fox hunting. Grant Shapps, the ex-Conservative Party chairman after the election, called fox hunting the insane policy, signalling the party's election campaign was about to go off the rails. We have every right to feel good about ourselves right now, but let no one think for a minute our work is done. We may have secured a massive victory and avoid the nightmare scenario of a huge Conservative majority in Parliament, but no, we haven't won the war, not yet. As we're all too aware, animals are still being hunted, crimes are still being committed. The fact of the matter is that not enough of these people are ending up in court, not enough of them are having their collars felt by the long arm of the law, not enough of them are having their identities revealed or their disgusting activities exposed. When the tiny handful of brought to justice, too many of them get away with it or being handed pitiful sentences that make a mockery of justice. And the law still allows them to get away with despicable activities such as the killing of thousands of healthy young dogs each year just because they can. I know that you're probably all of you aware, I was going to say some of you may be aware, you're probably all aware of some of the discussions about the future of our investigations. And it's by design that we've done it, to coincide with today and have an opportunity for everyone to come together, to have informed conversations about the way ahead. I've spent the last 2 days meeting with each of the guys, and it's just been the most humbling and amazing experience. But we're doing this because we want to step up our efforts to bring lawmakers to justice and expose the savage cruelty they're inflicting on defenceless animals. But there is one thing I'd really like to make absolutely clear. This isn't about whether or not the League does investigations. This is about how we do the work better, so that we can secure more exposes, prosecutions, and stop hunters from hunting and killing animals, which is our goal, which is our objective. Over the last few years, it's become increasingly difficult to secure prosecutions despite our best efforts. We're not getting enough hunters prosecuted or convicted. We're not getting enough exposure of activities, and it seems as though they are continuing to behave with impunity, and thousands of animals are being illegally hunted, tortured, and killed. And we need to look at how we can address this better. Despite spending thousands of pounds of supporters' money on our investigations work, some of our current tactics aren't working. That's where we're looking at how we do this. It's not about stopping our investigative work, it's about working out how we can do more to make it successful in bringing hunters to justice. We should be able to expose more of the disgusting and illegal activities. We should be able to bring more of these people before courts. We should be able to make sure these people are punished, and by the way, not just petty fines. No, it's time animal abuse and all forms of animal torture and persecuting was accepted as serious and violent crime that it is, and that the perpetrators face the time in the jail that they deserve. We need to be on the front foot now, not sitting back merely defending the Hunting Act, but making it work, getting the authorities to do their jobs properly. If there are those using the excuse of waiting to see what the result of the election of, there can be no doubt now. We must think radically about how we do it. We haven't entered into this process lightly. Eduardo, our director and the Board of Trustees have been clear this challenge must be addressed. And we are acutely aware that this is a very difficult time for our investigations team. We're grateful for their continued support and dedication at this really difficult time. To help us do this, we've opened up the consultation, which is a vital listening process on how we move forward collectively. We've already had the valuable conversations, and I hope the intention is we have more today than we hear. Talking of staff, actually, can all staff put their hands up? If you look around, I'd say maybe half are here. We're not an enormous organisation. And I think the fact that many people think we are is a tribute to our work. I think the phrase punching above our weight, which is often used about the League, is so true. We're proud of the work we do, but we couldn't do it without your support. So, as ever, let me thank you for being here, and we're really looking forward to the conversations this afternoon. What I would say, as Chris said earlier, if all of you want to talk about the investigation consultation, we will have all the tables on that. But if when you go out, if you let Mike know what are the priorities, and then during the lunch, we will be flexible and accommodate for the conversations that you're really interested in and need to be had. But actually together we are making a difference, and we'll keep making a difference until cruel sports are actually a thing of the past, which is what we're here to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to pick up one thing before I hand over to Chris that Philippa mentioned there. Can I ask staff again to put your hands up? Can I ask our membership to show their appreciation? These guys, I know all of them, have huge amount of commitment and work really, really hard. Put your hands up. I'm a little bit annoyed that was far longer and far louder than mine, but never mind, I think they deserve it. I think they deserve it. I'll pass over to Chris just to explain the process of the discussion groups, the consultation groups this afternoon, and also maybe just mention a little bit about lunch.
Yes. Thank you. We're going to change the order of events slightly. So that we can get everything in, because we've run a little bit over, but that's not a problem. What we're going to do now is break for lunch, and when we come back we will have the breakout sessions, and then after the breakout sessions we will have the Q&A, which should be scheduled now. I think if we have the Q&A scheduled now, as was originally timetabled, lunch will be at 3. And I think we'll give it the time and space that we need. And actually, you may find that within the breakout sessions, as they are planned, you'll get quite a few of the answers that you're looking for. And then we can have a question and answer session after that. So, just as a reminder, you have a form and a pen on your seats. If you can fill that out on your way or before you go head off to lunch, that would be great. And then give them to Mike, who is just walking towards the back of the room, and over lunchtime Mike will sort out the tables and what needs to happen so that when you come back in we'll all be set up for that. When you go to lunch, please can I ask you that you take all of your bags and personal items with you, because this group needs reconfiguring, so there's a good chance that they would go astray. So if you keep them with you, that would be really, really helpful. But I think that's all for now. Lunch is straight through, where you had some refreshments this morning, and I will see you back here in about an hour. Thank you very much.